What happens when one of Hollywood's biggest stars sits down for what should be a simple interview, but instead finds himself in the middle of an on-air confrontation that spirals completely out of control? The tension in the studio was palpable from the moment Chris Hemsworth walked onto that stage, and what unfolded over the next several minutes would become one of the most talked about moments in daytime television history. Before we dive into exactly what went down, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling me what you think about celebrity interviews gone wrong, because trust me, you are going to want to share your thoughts on this one. So Chris Hemsworth was making the rounds, promoting his latest project, and The View was supposed to be just another stop on a typical press tour. The audience was excited, the energy was high, and everything seemed perfectly normal as he settled into his seat. The panel welcomed him with the usual pleasantries, talking about his career, his recent work, and getting some laughs from the crowd. But then, Behar shifted the conversation in a direction that nobody saw coming. She started by saying, "Chris, you have been very vocal about your fitness routine and your lifestyle choices. A lot of people look up to you as a role model. But I have to ask, do you ever think about the pressure you put on ordinary people when you post those workout videos and talk about your strict diet regimens?" Chris smiled, clearly thinking this was going to be a lighthearted exchange. He responded, "Well, Joy, I think it is important to share what works for me. But I always say that everyone's journey is different. I am not telling anyone they have to do what I do. I am just showing what helps me stay healthy and prepared for the physical demands of my job." Joy leaned forward and her tone shifted slightly. "But do you not see how that can be problematic? You are in a position of privilege. You have personal trainers, private chefs, and all the time in the world to focus on your body. Meanwhile, regular people are struggling to make ends meet, working multiple jobs, and they see your posts and feel inadequate. Do you take any responsibility for that?" You could see Chris's expression change. The smile faded just a bit, and he took a moment before responding. "I understand that everyone has different circumstances, but I do not think sharing my own journey is inherently harmful. If anything, I try to be honest about the work it takes. I am not pretending it is easy." Joy was not backing down. "But Chris, it is easy for you. You get paid millions of dollars to look a certain way. That is literally your job. For most people, their job is stocking shelves, or driving trucks, or sitting at a desk for 10 hours a day. They do not have the luxury of making fitness their priority. So when you post these things, are you not just reinforcing unrealistic standards?" The other hosts seemed to sense the tension rising. Whoopi tried to interject with a joke to lighten the mood, but Joy kept her focus locked on Chris. He shifted in his seat, and you could tell he was trying to remain diplomatic. "Joy, I hear what you are saying, but I disagree with the premise that I should not share parts of my life because other people might have different circumstances. By that logic, nobody should share anything positive because someone somewhere might feel bad about it. That does not seem like a healthy way to approach things." Joy shot back immediately. "That is not what I am saying at all. What I am saying is that people in your position need to be more aware of their influence. You have 40 million followers on social media. When you post something, it reaches an enormous audience, and not everyone has the critical thinking skills to separate your reality from their own. Some people will see your posts and develop unhealthy obsessions or eating disorders trying to look like you." Chris's jaw tightened. "So you are suggesting that I am responsible for other people's mental health issues because I post about going to the gym? That is a pretty significant leap." Joy. The audience was dead silent now. You could feel the energy in the room completely shift from lighthearted to uncomfortable. Sarah N. tried to jump in with a question about Chris's upcoming film, clearly attempting to redirect the conversation. But Joy was not done. "I am not saying you are directly responsible, but you have to acknowledge the role that celebrity culture plays in perpetuating harmful beauty standards. And you, whether you like it or not, are a major part of that culture." Chris took a deep breath. "I have always been open about my struggles too. I have talked about the pressure of having to look a certain way for roles, the mental toll it takes, the fact that it is not sustainable year-round. I have been very transparent about all of that. So I reject the idea that I am just mindlessly posting workout content without any awareness of the impact." Joy leaned back and crossed her arms. "Have you though? Because, from where I am sitting, it looks like a lot of shirtless photos and inspirational quotes about no pain, no gain. I have not seen much nuance in your messaging." Chris's face flushed slightly. "Well, Joy, maybe you should look a little harder before making accusations on national television. I have done multiple interviews talking about body image issues, the pressure actors face, and the importance of mental health. Just because you have not seen it does not mean it does not exist." The tension was reaching a boiling point. Sunny Hostin attempted to mediate by saying, "I think what Joy is trying to say is that there is a broader conversation to be had about representation and standards in Hollywood." But Chris cut her off, his frustration now clearly visible. "No, that is not what Joy is saying. Joy is directly accusing me of being irresponsible and contributing to mental health problems. And honestly, I think that is incredibly unfair. I work hard at my craft, I try to be genuine with my audience, and I am not going to apologize for sharing my life. Joy responded without missing a beat. Nobody is asking you to apologize for your life, Chris. We are asking you to think more critically about the messages you send. That is what celebrities should do. You have a platform, use it responsibly. Chris shook his head. I am using it responsibly. What you are asking me to do is censor myself because you have decided that people cannot handle seeing someone work out. That is patronizing to your audience and it is insulting to me. The atmosphere in the studio was now incredibly tense. Alyssa Farah Griffin looked visibly uncomfortable, and Whoopi was glancing between Joy and Chris like she was trying to figure out how to regain control of the segment. But Joy was not finished. She had clearly touched a nerve, and she seemed intent on pressing the issue further. Joy continued, her voice taking on a sharper edge. Chris, let me ask you this. How much do you think you have spent on your fitness over the last year? Personal trainers, nutritionists, supplements, gym equipment. Give me a ballpark figure. Chris looked at her incredulously. I am not going to sit here and discuss my personal finances with you. Joy, that is completely inappropriate. Joy spread her hands. Why you want to inspire people, right? You want them to follow your example? Well, they deserve to know what that example actually costs. Because I guarantee you, whatever number you are thinking in your head right now, it is more than most American families make in a year. So let us be honest about what we are really talking about here. Chris's voice rose slightly. What we are really talking about here is you ambushing me on live television with accusations that I have not earned. You invited me on this show to talk about my film, and instead, you have turned this into some kind of trial where I have to defend my right to post on my own social media. Whoopi finally stepped in more forcefully. Okay, let us take a breath here. I think we are all getting a little heated. Chris, nobody is attacking you personally. Chris turned to Whoopi. Really, because it sure feels like a personal attack. Joy just implied that I am contributing to eating disorders, and now she is demanding I disclose my financial information. How is that not personal? Joy interjected before Whoopi could respond. It is not personal, it is accountability. You are a public figure who profits from your image. The public has a right to understand the reality behind that image. And the reality is that what you sell as fitness inspiration is actually just wealth and privilege disguised as hard work. Chris stood up slightly in his seat before catching himself and sitting back down. His voice was controlled, but you could hear the anger beneath it. That is absolutely ridiculous. You do not know anything about my work ethic or what I have sacrificed to get where I am. I grew up in Australia. I was not born into wealth. I worked for everything I have. And yes, now I have resources that help me maintain my physique for roles that require it. But that does not negate the effort. Joy shook her head. Chris, I am not questioning your work ethic. I am sure you work very hard, but you have to see the difference between someone who works hard with every advantage in the world, and someone who works hard while struggling to pay rent and feed their kids. And when you post your content without acknowledging that difference, you are being tone deaf. Sunny tried again to redirect. I think there is merit to what both of you are saying. Chris works in an industry with specific demands, and Joy is pointing out the broader societal context. Maybe we can find some common ground here. But Chris was not interested in common ground anymore. The common ground is that I should be able to share my life without being vilified for it. Joy, you are on television every day. You have a platform. You share your opinions, your experiences, your lifestyle. Should we interrogate every single thing you post to make sure it is not making someone somewhere feel inadequate? Joy's eyes narrowed. That is a false equivalence and you know it. I am not selling physical perfection. I am not profiting from making people feel bad about their bodies. Chris laughed, but there was no humor in it. Neither am I. You are projecting that onto me. I post about fitness because it is part of my job and my life. If someone feels bad about themselves because of that, that is something they need to work through, not something I need to apologize for. The audience gasped audibly. Joy leaned forward, her voice cutting. So you are saying people's insecurities are their own problem and you bear no responsibility whatsoever. Chris met her gaze. I am saying that I cannot control how every single person reacts to everything I do. I can be thoughtful, I can be considerate, but at the end of the day, I am not responsible for other people's emotional responses to my existence. That is an impossible standard. Joy fired back immediately. It is not an impossible standard to be mindful of your influence. It is called basic human decency. But clearly, that is too much to ask from someone who lives in a bubble of privilege. That was the line that seemed to break something in Chris. His face went red and he pointed at Joy. You do not get to question my decency. You do not know me. You invited me here. You pretended this was going to be a normal interview. And then you ambushed me with this agenda-driven nonsense. And now, you are sitting there acting like you have the moral high ground. Because you are willing to attack someone for posting workout videos. Joy did not back down an inch. I am not attacking you. I am challenging you. And if you cannot handle being challenged, maybe you should not be doing interviews. Chris stood up fully this time. Oh, I can handle being challenged. Joy, What I cannot handle is being disrespected. There is a difference between asking tough questions and being deliberately hostile. And you have crossed that line. Whoopi stood up too, her hands raised. Okay, Chris, let us just take a moment here. Nobody wants this to get out of hand. Chris turned to Whoopi, his voice still heated but slightly more controlled. It is already out of hand. Whoopi, this is not a conversation, it is an ambush. And I did not sign up for this. Joy remained seated, but her voice was loud and clear. You signed up for it the moment you became a public figure. You want the fame, the money, the adoration, but you do not want any of the scrutiny that comes with it. You cannot have it both ways. Chris grabbed his microphone pack and started to unhook it. You know what, Joy? You are absolutely right. I cannot have it both ways. So I am choosing to have neither right now. I am done with this conversation. Sarah N. looked panicked. Chris, please, let us just talk this through. But Chris was already moving. There is nothing to talk through. Joy has made it clear what she thinks of me, and I have made it clear that I do not appreciate being ambushed. I came here in good faith, and this is what I get. Joy called out as he walked. Running away does not change the facts. Chris, you still have a responsibility whether you want to acknowledge it or not. Chris stopped and turned back to her. And you have a responsibility to treat your guests with respect. Joy, but I guess we are both failing at our responsibilities today. The other hosts were all talking at once, trying to de-escalate, trying to get Chris to sit back down. But he was shaking his head. Whoopi was saying something about taking a commercial break, but her voice was drowned out by the chaos. The audience was buzzing with shock and confusion. You could see crew members off camera looking at each other in complete disbelief at what was unfolding. Chris turned to the audience and his voice softened slightly. I apologize to all of you for this. You came here expecting a fun show, and instead you got whatever this was. That is not fair to you. Joy stood up now to, do not apologize to them. Chris, apologize for using your platform irresponsibly. That is what you should be sorry for. Chris stared at her for a long moment. I have nothing to apologize for. Absolutely nothing. And the fact that you think I do says a lot more about you than it does about me. Whoopi stepped between them physically now, her voice firm. All right, that is enough from both of you. Chris, sit down. Joy, take a breath. We are going to handle this like professionals. But Chris was already moving toward the exit. I am being professional. Whoopi, the professional thing to do when you are being disrespected is to remove yourself from the situation. That is what I am doing. Alyssa finally spoke up, her voice urgent. Chris, I think there has been a misunderstanding here. Joy raises these points with everyone. It is not personal, it is just how we have conversations on this show about important issues. Chris stopped and looked at her. A misunderstanding. Alyssa, there is no misunderstanding. Joy called me tone-deaf, accused me of contributing to mental health problems, demanded my financial information, and questioned my decency. Those are not misunderstandings, those are direct attacks. And I am not going to stand here and pretend otherwise, just to make everyone comfortable. Joy stepped closer, her face set. You are twisting my words. Chris, I never questioned your decency as a person. I questioned whether you are being thoughtful about your platform. That is a legitimate criticism. Chris laughed bitterly. You literally just said, I lack basic human decency. Those were your exact words. Do not gaslight me on live television. Joy, everyone here heard what you said. The tension in the studio was suffocating now. Sunny jumped in desperately. I think emotions are running very high right now, and maybe we all need to just reset. Chris, would you be willing to sit back down? And we can start fresh. Talk about your movie. Talk about positive things. Chris shook his head slowly. I appreciate what you are trying to do, Sunny, but no, I am not interested in pretending the last 10 minutes did not happen. Joy made her feelings about me very clear, and I have made mine clear about how I expect to be treated. There is no resetting from that. Sarah tried one more time. Chris, we have had disagreements on this show before. It is part of what makes it interesting, but we always work through it. We do not want you to leave like this. Chris's voice was quieter now, but still firm. Sarah, this was not a disagreement. A disagreement is when two people have different viewpoints and they discuss them respectfully. What just happened was Joy deciding I am a bad person because I post gym photos. And then spending 15 minutes trying to make me admit it. That is not a discussion, that is a prosecution. Joy threw her hands up. This is unbelievable. You are playing the victim here when all I did was ask you to think more carefully about your influence. If that is too much for your ego to handle, then maybe you are not as self-aware as you think you are. Chris turned back to face her fully. My ego, Joy, you have spent this entire interview trying to tear me down, because you have some preconceived notion about who I am and what I represent. You did not come into this wanting to have a conversation. You came into this wanting to prove a point. And when I did not roll over and agree with you, you got more and more aggressive. Joy stepped forward. I got more aggressive because you refused to take any accountability. Every question I asked, you deflected. Every point I made, you dismissed. You act like you are above criticism. Chris's voice rose again. I am not above criticism, but I am above being insulted on national television by someone who clearly has an agenda. You want to have a real conversation about celebrity culture and influence. Fine, but that requires both people coming to the table in good faith. You did not do that, Joy. You came to this table ready for a fight. Whoopi tried once more. Chris, I understand you are upset. But walking off is not going to solve anything. It is just going to create more drama and more headlines. Chris looked at her and his voice was tired now. Whoopi, the drama and the headlines are already here. They were here the moment Joy decided to turn this interview into an attack. Me staying or leaving does not change that. All it changes is whether I am willing to continue being disrespected for your ratings. That comment hung in the air like a bomb. Alyssa's eyes went wide and Sarah looked down at the table. Joy's face hardened even more. So that is what you really think? You think this is all for ratings? You think I do not actually care about these issues? Chris met her gaze evenly. I think you care more about making yourself look righteous than you do about having a productive conversation. Otherwise, you would not have approached this the way you did. Joy's voice was cold now. I approach this the way I approach every interview where I see something that needs to be addressed. You are not special, Chris. You do not get a pass. Just because you are handsome and charming and people like you. Chris shook his head. I never asked for a pass. I asked for respect. And you could not give me that. So yeah, I am leaving. And before you say something about me running away or not being able to handle criticism, let me be clear. I have done hundreds of interviews. I have answered tough questions. I have had uncomfortable conversations, but I have never had someone treat me with the level of hostility you have shown today, Joy. And I am not going to normalize that by staying. He started walking again, and this time no one tried to stop him. The other hosts looked at each other, clearly unsure what to do. Joy remained standing, her arms crossed, watching him go. The audience was completely silent, stunned by what they were witnessing. Just before Chris reached the exit, Joy called out one more time. You know what the irony is? Chris, if you had just acknowledged that you have privilege and that you could be more mindful, this whole thing could have been a positive conversation. But your pride would not let you do that. Chris stopped but did not turn around. His voice carried across the studio. My pride has nothing to do with it, Joy. I do not owe you a confession just because you have decided I am guilty. That is not how conversations work. That is not how respect works. And that is definitely not how you treat someone you invited onto your show. He turned his head slightly, just enough to make eye contact with her one more time. I hope whatever point you were trying to make was worth it. Because you just burned a bridge on live television for no reason other than you could not handle someone disagreeing with you. Joy shouted back. I did not burn anything. You are the one walking away. Chris finally turned fully. His expression a mix of frustration and disappointment. Yeah, I am walking away. Because staying here and continuing this circus does not benefit anyone. Not me, not you, not the audience. You got your moment, Joy. You got to go after a celebrity and make yourself feel important. Congratulations. With that, he turned and walked off the set completely. You could hear his footsteps echoing in the stunned silence. The camera stayed on the panel for a moment, capturing the shock on their faces. Whoopi looked angry. Sarah looked upset. Sunny and Alyssa looked uncomfortable, and Joy looked defiant. Whoopi was the first to speak, addressing the camera directly. Well, that was certainly unexpected. We are going to take a quick break and we will be right back. But before they cut to commercial, you could hear Joy's voice, not quite off mic yet. If he cannot handle a real conversation, he should not be doing press. And that was it. Chris Hemsworth had walked off The View in the middle of what was supposed to be a routine promotional interview. The whole thing spiraled from a question about fitness posts to a full-blown confrontation about privilege, responsibility, and respect. Neither side backed down, neither side apologized. And it ended with one of Hollywood's biggest stars removing his microphone and leaving the studio while the cameras were still rolling. The question everyone was asking afterwards was simple. Who was in the right here? Was Joy justified in pressing Chris about his influence and his privilege? Or did she cross a line by turning what should have been a friendly interview into a hostile interrogation? Was Chris right to stand up for himself and leave when he felt disrespected? Or should he have stayed and tried to work through the conflict on camera? These are the kinds of moments that reveal something real about people. When the polish comes off and the media training fails, you see who someone actually is, under pressure. And what we saw was two people who were absolutely convinced they were right, unwilling to give an inch, and unable to find any common ground. The collision was inevitable once it started, and neither one was willing to be the one who blinked first. So there you have it. One of the most explosive interviews in recent daytime television history. All because of a conversation about Instagram posts and responsibility. If you made it this far, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below answering this question. Do you think Chris Hemsworth was justified in walking off, or should he have stayed and finished the interview? Let me know what you think.